In October 1972, representatives from across the world met in London to sign the charter establishing the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, known as IIASA. It was the culmination of 6 years' effort by US President Lyndon Johnson and USSR Premier Alexei Kosygin, and marked the beginning of a remarkable project to use scientific cooperation to build bridges across the Cold War divide and to confront growing global problems on an international scale. IIASA was forged in the name of science diplomacy, and today it still regards science diplomacy as a key tool to help build trust between nations and support foreign policies.
Science diplomacy can succeed when other channels sometimes are not successful. I think the successes that I've seen and sometimes participated in gives me confidence that I think there's always a role to play for science diplomacy. Because I think the one thing that science has managed to do consistently throughout that period was to act as a soft form of diplomacy, in a sense. In other words, where it could actually open up doors, start conversations and start bridge building.
Science diplomacy is shown in 3 dimensions. First, science for diplomacy. Scientific cooperation improves international relations. Second is science in diplomacy. Science provides advice to inform foreign policy. And third is diplomacy for science, when diplomacy facilitates international scientific cooperation. All these 3 dimensions are present at IIASA.
One example is IIASA's project called Challenges and Opportunities of Economic Integration within a wider European and Eurasian space. In this project, we focused on the future of economic ties between the European Union and the Eurasian Economic Union. The science for diplomacy contribution of IIASA in this case was to bring parties with very different views into a dialogue. Through this dialogue, they built trust, which was very critical in the political reality of that time.
A recent example of science diplomacy in action at the Institute is the IIASA and International Science Council Consultative platform.
I thank the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis and the International Science Council for bringing us all together for the first advisory board meeting of the IIASA Consultative platform.
And the idea was to learn from what was happening from the COVID-19 crisis, to see if we could look at some of the things that we could preserve. But the most important thing was to try to see if we could prioritize the areas for transformation that could help us to build a more sustainable and equitable world. Within a fairly short period of time, we were able to put together online consultations that gathered some 350 experts in science, in practitioners, and in policymakers.
We need to cooperate and collaborate more effectively than ever before.
IIASA has the potential not just to be a player among others in science diplomacy, but it has the legitimacy to exercise global leadership.
As a scientific institution, we can only put the scientific facts on the table. The science is not negotiable. What is negotiable is the way that that's used and the way that different countries or different societies may choose to harness the science for their own benefit. And there's always a little bit of room for maneuver there, because at the end of the day, political decision making is not just about science. It's also about the economy, and it's always going to be about people. It's not just about science. I think science needs to make its case, and science needs to put its best foot forward, and science needs to try and demonstrate why it's in the interest of societies to adopt a worldview that embraces science.